Hey, welcome everyone to tonight's Solar for Homeowners 101. Appreciate your interest. We've got a good turnout tonight. So we're going to move through this to try to get through all the information before we can take your questions orally, but feel free to raise your questions in the chat. And we will be sending out the recording and the deck in a few days. So you will all receive copies of what you're seeing tonight. So we're going to go through a presentation by Joe Cole on this homeowner solar for homeowners 101. Then Jim Wiley is going to speak to Solar for All, a Pennsylvania program that's being formed. And then Peter and Brian are going to speak to Solarize Southeast PA, a volunteer group that helps homeowners evaluate their solar possibilities. And then we'll go into Q&A. Okay, Joe, you can take over.
Thank you, Bill. So my name is Joe Coyle, and I've been involved with solar now in Pennsylvania for over 17 years. My partner and I started a small company, and my primary role with our company is not only my installer and the owner, but I work with all of our new homeowners from the sales process, and I handle all of our inquiries coming in and field all the questions. And the reason I reached out to, well, Ron's on the call and Bill was I put together a collection of, I think the most important questions that I receive, whether it's people who are exploring solar or who already have solar, and the feedback that they're giving me that, they wish they knew before they signed a contract or they wish they knew before they move forward. Um, so I'm hoping that the goal tonight, give me the next slide, Bill. I'm hoping that the goals tonight, it does cover statewide. Everyone can take advantage of, most of this. We primarily focus on the southeastern part of the state, but like I said, for our western Pennsylvania people, I think you're going to gain a lot as well. This is pretty much general solar information, but that's kind of where I'm coming from. And again, it's wonderful to get this, direct feedback from our homeowners. And like I said, I'm happy to pass it on tonight. Next slide, Bill. So just want to quickly start off with, I'm horrible with social media. However, I'm sure many who do log into social platforms or get on YouTube and, I see these advertisements. They anything from get free solar panels, the government's giving them out to, you know, Pennsylvania, there's incentives, you got to go now, we'll give you free panels. And I get that question a lot because people don't understand, or they call me and they're like, hey, I'd like to talk about free solar panels. So just wanted to kind of like get to kind of maybe like to the root of what that might be and kind of what you're looking at. So the first thing is that a lot of those ads are put together by companies that are into the leasing and the PPA. And that's basically, it's not a lie. I mean, they're basically saying you don't need to buy anything. But what you're doing is you're agreeing to allow a third party or a company put their panels on your property, and then they'll generate energy, and then they're going to sell it to you at agreed upon term. So that's kind of the direction that that's going in terms of, free solar panels. It's really, yeah, you don't have to buy anything, but you don't own anything. You just agree that they're a third party supplier that you're also going to buy power from. And then anything that you're not getting from them, you're going to buy it from your, current utility. The other one, this is actually more alarming to me and alarming to most people when I talk to them about it, is that when you click those ads and they're asking for your location, they're asking for your name, your email, all that good stuff. Really, what they're doing is they're just collecting your information, and then weekly, and I'm not even exaggerating here, weekly we get phone calls and emails to buy leads. And that's what they're doing. They're basically harvesting your information so that way they can turn around and then sell it to installers and people involved in solar here in PA. So that's just wanted to touch on that, that it's, it is a little bit misleading. That I think that people, again, I'm very much into the transparency of things. I really think people should know that when they're giving their information away, that's kind of where it's going. So next slide, Bill. So another question I get an awful lot is, as you're going through the process, I always encourage everyone, talk to a few different contractors and installers because you're going to get different perspectives. Buying a system versus the lease and the PPA, it is very different. So you're going to get that perspective. But you're just going to get, some might know more than others. You might talk to some out-of-state contractors or what have you. But the point is, talk to a few and get a couple different bids, get a couple different opinions. But one of the ones I get all the time is um, I've got three quotes, and I'm surprised that one generation is much higher than another, or one's much lower, and what could that be? So I just want to quickly touch on that. As a homeowner, there's an amazing resource that you have access to. It's a, government-supported website. It's from the National Renewable Energy Labs, and I have the link down here in the bottom of the slide. If you go on that, you're able to enter in your address. You're able to do some basic information in terms of, basically doing what the installers are doing at a very basic level. You can, through some different help from the internet, you can get like the rotation of your house, you can get the roof pitch, things like that. And that'll give you like a snapshot of what you could expect. But the main thing that usually I would be able to share with homeowners, it's different, is usually it's about shading. And there is what's called a D-rate factor. And so, if you just keeping it simple, if you walk outside at different parts of the day and look at your roof, just look at how the sun hits your roof and if there's shade. And that's usually, honestly, one of the big things is that when one generation is different than another, it just usually comes down to D-rate. So if you're talking with a contractor, you could always say, hey, are you factoring in shading? We have a lot of shade on our property, things like that. And again, it's not that it's misleading. It's sometimes contractors have access to old images. Like you may have had a tree come down, for example, in a storm, and they might have the old image and it says it has a lot of shade, and you might say, oh, that's not there anymore. So that's kind of just, sharing what, could be different. But I do get that question, and it's funny because I never really thought of it as on my side of it. I never really thought of it could be so different, and that's just, what it might be. Next slide, Bill. Okay, so are there Pennsylvania incentives? We're going to touch on in a minute the federal tax credit, but we do get asked a lot, does PA offer anything? And just kind of to share with you that um, by by going with solar, it does have two main, I guess, benefits. One would be that you're generating energy and you're saving, so less you need to purchase from the utility company. Um, there is a secondary program. It is a state program, and what it's called, they're called alternative energy credits. And so your system is going to generate physical electricity that's coming off the roof and literally right into your home. However, it's also going to generate these green certificates or green credits. And not to get too much into the weeds, if you just go into the internet and just type in Pennsylvania um, alternative portfolio standard, that you'll get some information about it. But long story short, it's a program where the state is asking that utilities and other entities that no longer can all the energy in Pennsylvania come from traditional sources like nuclear, coal, and natural gas. So they're asking that, a fraction of the energy going out to homeowners is coming from alternative sources. And since the utilities don't want to go out and build solar farms and spend all that money, they're looking at you as a power provider for yourself. And when you're feeding back to the grid, you're providing power to the grid as well. So they want to buy the green credits. Um, Right now, just kind of give you an update that as of December, they're trading at about $34 a credit, which is much higher than it was a few years ago. But I just don't want to put a lot of emphasis and stress on it because it is a program and it is all based on the market and it's based on the demand set by the state. And right now, we are at the highest amount. So I know that there's a group here in Pennsylvania really tirelessly working with Harrisburg trying to get some adjustments to this program. But just know right now there is a small little revenue stream. They're called AECs or alternative energy credits. It is something that, is for anyone who installs solar that owns the system. If you go with a lease or a PPA, you're basically allowing the other company to take those. But this is something again that your installer should be able to give you some more information on, and they also should be able to help you, um, you know, talk with a broker and get you set up with all that and the registration with the state. Next slide, Bill. Okay, so there's two main concepts here. Purchase versus a lease or a power purchase agreement. Simple. If you're purchasing a system, you buy the equipment, you contract with a company to put it on your roof, they hook you up, they do all the permits, inspections, and then you own everything. You get the tax credit for yourself, you get the power for yourself. You're now a power generator, you're working with your utility, and then you get the solar credits. The PPA, or it's called a power purchase agreement or a leasing model, it's where you're working with a third party and allowing them to put panels on your house, and they'll sell you power. Um, there's a little bit subtle differences that I've seen in terms of like what's the difference between a lease. Some companies offer like hybrid programs, which are pretty cool. So if you do go down that road, it's basically where you're going to agree to a term, a set amount of years, you're going to agree to buy power from them. And some of them where they'll say, okay, after 13 years, we're going to allow you, if you'd like, to buy the system from us. So then they'll give you like a discounted rate. You can buy it out and then you can own it after so many years. So that's kind of a nice little program as well. We're going to get into the financial side of that. I have a little slide on that in a minute. But that's just so you kind of are more familiar with the terms you might hear purchasing or owning the system versus working with a third party. Next slide, Bill. All right, so this is a real big one I wanted to touch on. If I can give you one big thing to take away from tonight, before you sign a contract, please read what's in the contract and ask questions of the company, the installer, um, or just and do some internet research. This is one that gets me the most upset. When I get homeowners that call me, I should say this is the only one, but this is a big one where people say, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was in my contract and now I'm locked in. Um, I just want to make sure you understand that when you sign these contracts, you're signing in a binding agreement. And like, just for example, like, so one of the ones that you're going to see is when you work with like a power purchase provider, or like a leasing model, sometimes in the contract, they have terms such as you agree to buy power from that entity for 20 plus years. Some people are shocked at that. They didn't even realize that they're locked into that. Some of the ones that we've kind of run into with realtors is that you're agreeing to buy power for that term. Let's say you decide you want to sell your home. The concept would be, yeah, just get the next homeowner to take over the payments, but just understand you are on the hook for that power that you agreed to. So even if you decide to sell the home, if the next homeowner doesn't want that solar, you have to buy out that contract. Again, it's just amazing and I feel so bad when people come to me and they're like, that's what they didn't realize that. Another big one is that, you know, when someone's putting panels on your home, you want to make sure in the agreement who's going to be responsible if the roof leaks, because that's another big one. That, does the contractor, are they responsible? If you go with a power purchase company and they have a third party, like an install crew that shows up, who's responsible for that roof? Who does that? If you take the solar panels off, who's responsible to repair that roof or get a new roof? So those are just some of the big ones that jump out. It's been, like I said, it's kind of just been, I just want to make sure I get that out there because like I said, it's just, it's a shame when I get to see some of these contracts and I see what's in there. Like I said, some of it's good. It's not all terrible, but some of these things, like I said, are kind of shocking to me. And I just like to make sure that everyone's kind of aware of what's going on. Next slide, Bill. So again, this is something that I took. So I have a homeowner in South Jersey just a month ago, got in touch, and they were cold called by a company who wanted to do a lease program with them over New Jersey. So this also applies to Pennsylvania, but this just happens to be from a current lease I just got. And if you look at the second into the third line, it says you will be responsible for the remaining payments by signing this lease. So that's kind of what I was touching on, where as the property owner, you're agreeing and guaranteeing you're going to pay for the 25-year term of this lease. But the other one that really jumped out here on this particular one was that this is saying that as a customer, you are responsible for the cost of removing and replacing the solar system if the roof needs to be repaired and replaced. And what kind of alarms me is that if you have a contractor that never got up on your roof, or you're buying solar from a company because it's a great deal and they're out of California and nobody went out and did a roof inspection, how are you supposed to sign this agreement saying my roof's in great shape? Come on over and put panels on it. As a contractor, I would always tell everyone, insist somebody comes out and does an inspection. At the very minimum, if you're going to sign that agreement, not a problem, but then hire a roofer to come over and say, hey, can you get up there and just check my roof? What do you think about it? Because again, when we're looking at solar, it is a long-term investment, and it should be up there for 25 years. It pains me when I get a call. This is like something I'll get into it again later, but it pains me when I get a call. Hey, I have a solar system that's 3 years old. My contractor's no longer around, and I have to have it taken off to get a new leak, or I'm sorry, get a new roof. And I'm always kind of just scratching my head like it's unbelievable that somebody put it up on a bad roof. So anyway, just want to share that. Like that was taken from a lease. Just came out, like I said, a month ago. And like I said, he threw it over to me, and I was just like, wow, I would never sign that without getting something in there like, customer protection, because I can see they just want to protect themselves. So anyway, so that's kind of just again, just be aware of the language. Next slide, Bill. All right, so this one I put together. So I took that lease and I wanted to just share with you just some of the things to kind of be aware of when you're, versus whether you're buying it or whether you're going to get into a lease. So if you look on the left side of the slide, now this it might be a little bit high. He's in South Jersey, and so and there's some factors with his roof. But long story short, this was a 14 kW system, and I was telling him that, hey, if you bought this system outright, just wanted to buy it, you'll be in the $42,000 range. Now that sounds like a lot because you might, get a couple different quotes. You might get somebody to do it for much cheaper. That's fine. But the point is, it's not about the cost. It's just showing that in this issue or in this example, for example, 42 grand you put up front. Now the federal tax credit is yours as a homeowner, so you'll get a tax credit in this example of 12,600. So really, after the incentive, you're basically left with 29,400. Okay. Now in New Jersey, this is again, I'm just using in New Jersey, but this is exactly the same way with Pennsylvania, how you're factoring this. In New Jersey, for example, in South Jersey and Atlantic City Electric, they're paying 24 cents for electricity. So with their system of 14 kW, they're going to save, that homeowner is going to save $3,300 with energy. So if you just want to take that and stretch that out, and then, not to get into the weeds on all this, but if you put in the electrical escalator of about 3% every year, so if the utilities are increasing the rates about 3%, that's how you can kind of factor in like my savings. So if my savings is based on what my utility is in my territory. So in this particular one, it's 24 cents. I share with this homeowner, yeah, after 8.5 years or 8.75 years, if you just buy the system outright, you don't do any financing, you'll get a break-even point at about 8.5 years. Now, jump over to the other side of the slide. If you look at the lease, so what's interesting, like I said, you put no money out of pocket. In this particular one, what happened was the salesperson said, hey, listen, you're paying $300 a month for energy, and that's what they shared. And they said, if you lock in with us today, 25 years, we're going to lock you into a guaranteed rate. You're only going to pay $175 a month for the energy. That's what kind of got him alarmed. He's like, wow, that sounds pretty amazing. But when you run out the numbers, I wanted to share with you the last part of that slide. After 25 years, you have paid that company $52,500 for that agreement. Now, like I said, it's great. You're saving up front, but just understand that if you had the means and you wanted to buy it, it might be a better deal because of you're getting the tax credit for yourself versus the company taking it. And like I said, you're not locked into a long term. And if you did want to finance it, again, you can also negotiate with, your bank. You don't need to take out a 25-year term. You could go for like a 10-year or a 15-year, something like that. So I just wanted to kind of share with you, like, again, if you do look at the leasing model and the PPA, like I mentioned, it's not a bad thing. It's just a matter of, what's right for you. But just, again, like, don't let somebody push you into an agreement. Understand kind of what you're going to sign, but take a look at, both sides. Look at what it would cost. Hey, what's the cash deal if I bought it and I financed it myself? Or what am I getting into if I go with this other term? So that's what I'm saying. It's just again, just being aware of, some of the models. Next slide, Bill. All right, so real quick on the financing side, if you do go with financing, my biggest thing when I talk to homeowners is please go and do yourself a favor, go to your own bank or credit union and find out what it would cost to finance your own system. And the reason I say that is it's one of the main reasons why we don't offer financing. One of the things that it's not as transparent when you look at some of the big solar financing institutions is that they charge some pretty hefty fees. One that we used to work with, where they were saying, okay, if the homeowner wants to borrow 25,000, we're going to put $5,000 of fees on that. And as contractors, what we were told to do was to put that into our price, kind of put that in there, and then allow the homeowner to borrow it all, but then they can absorb some of that with the tax credit. So again, I just wanted to point that one out. Like, you might get an okay deal, but I always say start with your bank or credit union just because you could probably avoid the fees that might be, kind of put into a quote. Why go through that if you can get your own bank or credit union to finance your system or to help finance your system? Um, so anyway, just kind of pointing that one out as well. Again, a lot of people just don't know about the fees that are tacked onto that one. Next slide, Bill. All right, I get this one. This is a huge one I get now, and it's very, very popular. And everyone's got difference of opinions. I'm not a tax accountant or a tax advisor, but the big question is, hey, I need to get a new roof. Can I put that under your proposal or under your estimate and get that to qualify for the tax credit? Um, so I wanted to share with you in the middle here, you'll just read the language for yourself. You can work with your accountant or your advisor and you can interpret that how you want. However, our interpretation is that no, new roofs do not qualify under the federal tax credit. And in the latest language, it was always kind of vague, but in the latest language, it does say traditional shingles do not. However, if you were to go with solar slate or solar shingles that actually generate energy, yes, that would. So again, I get this question a lot. I know some companies that do put it in there. I know the opinion is that they're not filing your taxes, so it's up to you to make that call. But that one I wanted to share with you because that is a huge question. I get almost every. It's funny lately, almost every time because the new roof question comes up a lot, so I get that question an awful lot. Next slide, Bill. Um, okay, so as an industry standard, if you've been in your house for a while and the house or the roof's been up there for a while, as an industry standard, I would say if your roof is 15, 20 years old, that's probably the time you would want to get the new roof. I tell my homeowners that put solar on hold and get the new roof done first. Have a clean slate where everything is nice and tight, and then get solar, or do it in conjunction. Have the roof put up, and then have the contractor work with the roofer. If you didn't do it, for example, the market rate. So when people call and say, "Hey, can you take down the system and then reinstall it for me?" It can range from anywhere from at a minimum $6,000 up to $8,000. And I just hate to see people have to incur that extra expense, something that they didn't know. Um, to have the system taken down because once it's up there, like I said, there's hardly any maintenance on them, and you don't need to touch the panels. You don't need to do that. You don't need to take it down. You're protecting the life of the roof underneath it, believe it or not. However, but if the roof's in bad shape and then a contractor gets up there and they're putting holes in your roof and then there's a problem with it, that's kind of where this could be an issue. So my opinion and my advice is if you think your roof is old or if it's at least 15 to 20 years, have somebody check your roof out and make sure it's something that they would want to install on and make sure that you're not going to have any issues. Next slide, Bill. Okay, so this one's interesting. Your utility basically is the one who's going to say if you're allowed to interconnect with them and the size system you can interconnect. So one of the things that I usually tell people is, and maybe talk to your contractor about, is apply to your utility first and then wait to pull permits. And the reason I say that is because we're seeing more throughout the territory, throughout Pennsylvania. I know specifically for PICO and MedEd and PP&L, where they're doing grid studies and they're actually seeing that some of the infrastructure out there, there's some problems with the wire sizing and what people want to do. There's also now that more and more people are getting solar, that more people are tied into the same transformers, and that's also an issue. So the long story short, when you apply for the system that you want, the utilities are going to come back and say, yes, you can do that, or no, you can't. And if there is a problem, some of them are offering solutions. Some of them might be, hey, if you upgrade the wire connected from the pole to your home, you pay us $800, we'll do that for you, and then you can do your system. Sometimes though, that the utilities might say, hey, I know you want to install 12 kW, but we're only going to allow you to install a 4 kW. And that might not be acceptable to you. But the point is that if you go and pull permits and spend all the money on that, and then you decide you want to get out, you've already wasted money. So kind of one of the things that you might want to talk to your contractor about is, hey, before you spend the money and pull permits at the township and have an engineer certify my roof's okay, let's go through our utility company, make sure that the system we want to install is okay. Next slide, Bill. And then just real quick for my Pico customers, I don't want to get too into this, but Pico has an interesting map. I don't believe too many other utilities have this, but Pico does, where you can go in, just type in Pico's interconnection viability map. You can go in, type in your address, and it'll bring up a map of your area. What it's doing, it's basically showing you where the transformers are. If it's a green dot, it means that that's a pretty good site. If it's a yellow triangle, it means it could be an issue. I just caution that it always can be an issue. Even green dots could be an issue, but it is something that you have as a tool as a homeowner to share with your contractor. Hey, this could be an issue. We have a yellow triangle, out in our backyard, for example, or we're connected to that. That could be an issue, meaning that there might be a problem with you interconnecting to the grid. So just share for any of my Pico customers on here, that is a tool that you can use if you're looking at solar. Next slide, Bill. Okay, can you generate more power and install a bigger system than what you actually need? And if you have any friends or neighbors or a home in New Jersey, you cannot. They cap you at 100%. In Pennsylvania, though, if you want to install a system that's more than what you're generating today or what you need today, you can. So for example, why somebody might do that? Let's say that you're putting up solar today, but you have plans on getting an electric vehicle in a few years, or let's say next year. And you want to factor in, I want to be able to charge my car. So you can install more solar today, knowing that you're going to have a use for it later. I caution you though, don't oversize the system if you don't think you can use the power, because Pico only gives you, or your utility is only giving you equal value up to what you need. When you start generating over and above, they'll give you some value for that or some credit for that, but it's not full retail value. So again, we have homeowners that install a little bit more, or they'll ask us, can we set up the system to expand it later, which is fine too. That way, when they add their hot tub or they add the swimming pool or they add an extra air conditioner or you name it, add that third refrigerator or freezer to their house. Like when they're using more and they want more power, just, you can either do it up front or you can do it on the back end. Next slide, Bill. Okay. When you have your system installed, please, please, please do me a favor and ask for all of the documentation, the wiring diagrams, the plot plans, the system specs, what's on your house, what's on your roof. When a homeowner calls, I need some service on my system, it's amazing and it's unfortunate how many people have no idea what they have. Because understand that the warranties, whether your contractor goes out of business or not, the warranties with the equipment is with you, the owner. If you decide to sell the home, the warranties stay with the home. So again, if you're calling somebody for help, hey, I need to get a new inverter. Hey, I have something going on, my system's not working. The questions we're going to ask as a contractor is, hey, what kind of inverter do you have? Do you have micro inverters? Do you have central inverter? What kind of panels do you have? Do you know what wattage they are? Do you know what manufacturer they are? Any system information you can give saves you money, saves you time, and speeds up the process. So please, when you're finished the project, make sure you get all of your documentation, all the warranty information, the equipment information, just so that you know what's on your property. Next slide, Bill. Okay, we gotta wind this up. We have some amazing speakers for you coming up next. But I do get questions a lot, what fails? What do you service? So you install solar and, again, the main thing that we address is that the inverter is a computer. So that will be a failure point at some point. Sometimes, again, the monitoring will go out. So I'll get a call, hey, Joe, my monitoring is not working. Can you check on that? So again, knowing that the manufacturer that you have on your property is huge. The third thing we have to do, on the unfortunate one, but the third biggest thing that we get calls for service is that, hey, I need to get a new roof. I need my equipment taken off and put back up. And then I would say the fourth thing we do get calls about, when a system might go out, it's the things we love. I feed the birds and I feed the squirrels, and occasionally they'll get up there, build nests, chew on wires, short things out. So these are like the four big things that we get calls for in terms of like maintenance and what could go wrong. But if a system's installed right, again, the monitoring thing could be a freak thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad install. The inverter, like I said, it's going to have a shelf life and it's going to have a failure point at some point. So you're going to have to probably replace that. The panels are pretty durable and you're probably fine there. But like I said, the big one, yeah, it's the roof replacements and roof reinstalls. That's the one that's a big one. Next slide, Bill. All right, so let's wind this up. The other thing that I tell homeowners is, when you're talking with your contractor, to be honest, is that you want to know this is my home, and what are you putting on my home? What is it going to look like? Where are you going to run the conduit? These are questions that people don't even think to ask. Um, but yeah, please ask your contractor, what is it going to look like? Can you show me a diagram of what everything's going to look like on my roof? Talk to them. How are you going to run the wire off the roof? How are you going to run the conduit? Are you going to run it through my house, through my attic? Are you going to run it over the side, over the gutter? Um, just kind of to share with you, like there's the image on the right. Um, it's like that's a clean install. You can see everything's nice and tight. It's in conduit. It's secured and kind of the one on the left, though, is a system. It's unfortunately it's in our town, and you can just see that how that looks on the front of someone's home. It makes me upset to see that. And like I said, the homeowner was when talking with the homeowner about it, they just thought that was, hey, I got solar and I'm really happy, and that they didn't have any idea. But just kind of sharing with you the difference of like, what a contractor could do, one versus another. Just, again, talk to your contractor about that, asking, please let me know what it's going to look like. Because again, there are things you can do aesthetically to make it look, as attractive as possible. Next slide, Bill. That's all that I have for you tonight. I hope that was, what you were looking for in terms of, questions to ask contractors and things to be aware of. We have some great people coming up. I'm going to turn it back over to Bill, who's probably going to turn it over to Jim next. And thanks for
Thank,
all your time.
thank you so much, Joe. Excellent, excellent sharing. So yeah, Jim Wiley's up next on Solar for All. Jim, you want to take over?
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for giving me a chance to talk. I just wanted to give you a heads up on the Solar for All program. So I'm Jim Wiley. I'm a volunteer leader with the Sierra Club. I live in Westchester, Chester County, just west of Philadelphia. I'm going to give you a very fast briefing on the Solar for All program in Pennsylvania. Solar for All is part of the Inflation Reduction Act with $7 billion available for competitive grants from the states and tribes. The Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection applied and was awarded $156 million. DEP assigned the Pennsylvania Energy Development Authority the job of managing the Solar for All in Pennsylvania, or maybe PETA initiated the grant application to begin with. So PETA, the Energy Development Authority, then split the 156 million into two parts, giving 70 million to the Philadelphia Green Capital Corporation, PGCC, to manage solar for all for the 5-county region around Philadelphia, southeastern Pennsylvania. The rest of the funding is being managed by PETA itself to implement solar for all of Pennsylvania, except for the southeast. Next slide. The goals of Solar for All are to make residential solar accessible for lower and middle income households and actually decrease energy bills, to spur clean energy job creation, attract more solar installers to Pennsylvania while maintaining customer protections, and of course, to reduce carbon emissions. Solar for All funding will primarily be used for subsidizing residential solar installations for low and medium income families. Using what they call a solar lease, a third party will own the panels and the homeowner will pay a monthly fee that will average out to be about 20% below what they're paying for electricity now, at least for the percentage of their energy use that's covered by solar. I won't get into these details. They'll be in the slides you get. I'll just say that the goal is to see at least 70 megawatts of solar installed in the next 5 years. I believe this is a Pennsylvania-wide number. Next slide. Yeah, actually, I talked about that. So yeah, that's the $70 million. So this slide will be in your packet. You can dig into it. Feel free to ask me questions down the line. Next slide, please. So specifically in Southeast Pennsylvania, the Solar for All program will be implemented by expanding the existing Solarized Philadelphia program to the 5-county area. Develop relationships with existing and new solar installers in the area, perform outreach to low and middle income households, and also support low middle income households by establishing a market rate or price to compare for residential solar in the suburban counties, and share a short list of vetted installers. And collaborate with the existing volunteer-run solarized teams in southeastern PA, who you'll be hearing from in just a minute. Next slide. So here's a map of disadvantaged tracts in the southeast, which is where PGCC intends to focus outreach, at least initially. There should be a large number of solar lease qualifying candidates in these areas. Next slide. Okay, the bottom line I got from Abby Rambo, the PGCC Solar for All director, just last Friday, is they've still got some administrative pieces to work through, but they hope to have Solar for All in the Southeast PA up and running in the spring of 2025. Here's an email list that you can join to stay up to date. And she just wanted to emphasize that there are no changes to the goals and the mission of Solar for All. And that's it. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Jim. Great information. Looking forward to more solar in Pennsylvania. So we'll move on to Solarize Southeast PA. We have 2 representatives, one for Delaware County and another for Greater Westchester. Peter, you want to take over?
Hello, everybody. Peter Puglianese here. Let's go to the next slide. So Solarize Delco, that's me. Like a lot of you, I noticed you got on the call today. A lot of you are active locally in environmental advisory committees, and that has led to doing other things, including participating first in the regional Solarize Southeast PA program, and then helping to found Solarize Delco, which focuses on one county. You've heard about Solarize Philly, which has been operating in Philly for many, many years. And they're soon going to have sort of a regional Southeast Pennsylvania reach. Other parts of the country of the state, most specifically Western Pennsylvania, Southwestern Pennsylvania, there's another organization that I'd like to mention, which is United Solar Neighbors. And so that's another organization that does something similar to what Solarize Delco does. Okay, next slide. So we are a nonprofit. We are focused on Delaware County. And the Solarize concept, we roll in different ways how we do things, but all the organizations are oriented toward helping people understand solar, giving them advice, and helping them proceed through to installation if they feel that it's right for them. And so, yeah, Jim points out that correctly that Solarize Philly does work differently. Some are solely giving advice, some are providing a route to installation, and really Philly is sort of more referring you directly to their participating installer. So we do have different philosophies. United Solar Neighbors, I think, is working somewhat like Solarize Delco, which is, they help, plus they have what is a sort of a group purchase plan. Okay, next slide. I did want to roll it back to solar basics because there were some questions on this. So the sun is shining, you're generating electricity, the inverters, microinverters or string inverters are converting that into AC. And then you don't have to disconnect from the grid. The best, least expensive installation is just using the grid as a battery. And in the daytime, you're putting electricity into the grid. At nighttime and inclement weather, you're pulling electricity out of the grid. And so we do sometimes get questions about battery storage. When? Well, never unless you have very, very unreliable power and you're using it as backup power. Okay, next slide. So there were a couple of questions on net metering. So net metering, basically, to boil it down to the simplest, is you get paid the same retail rate that you pay for electricity that you use out of the grid when you put power into the grid on an annualized resolution basis. In Southeast Pennsylvania, the utility being PECO, they do a resolution every May. And one thing to remember is, sort of the first partial year that you're installing, your resolution may be a little different from what it's going to be on a whole year to whole year basis. Okay, next slide. So what do we do? Well, mostly we're trying to outreach and educate. We will review your current usage, your current bills, regardless of where you are, have a lot more information than how many dollars you owe the utility company. So they usually have a 1-year look back, and that's basic information that anybody needs to size a solar installation for residential. And so we would go over all the options, income-based incentives, and really help you decide. And for our organization in Delaware County, we have vetted some local installers that are participating, and we can connect you generally. So we have negotiated pricing, which, as you heard earlier, Solaris Philly is going to do with their program. And so if you wanted to go simple, you could go with an installer that we refer you to. You're always free to do whatever you want, get 100 bids, which is going to be massively confusing. So ours is sort of a simplify the process approach. Okay, so the installer is going to do really a better evaluation than I will do, or our volunteers will do. And they do all the permits in the interconnection. And then once the interconnection is approved and engaged, you start getting electricity. All right, next slide. So these are just a list of questions that we ask, and hopefully someone is answering the questions as you go. We talked about roof age, and so again, our advice is similar to what you heard before. Structural, I did want to mention structural. Maybe 1% of the homes are going to have structural issues, which is to say they're very old, they're not built to anything like a recent code, and so they would need reinforcement potentially. So for our program, we work with installers and we say, well, you're not going to be charged for an assessment, and if you have to back out because you need structural reinforcement, it's not going to cost you. But they will actually have an engineer take a look at the structural aspects of the roof before saying that they will install. Certainly a reputable installer. Battery, our take on it is only if you are using it instead of needing like a generator. Better to buy, borrow, or lease. So that was covered pretty well. Sell in a few years. One of the things that we tell people is this is one of the few quote unquote home improvements that really returns about 100% of what you invest in it. And so it's kind of low risk, with the caveat that Joe mentioned earlier, unless you're leasing and you didn't read your lease agreement, and it may have some surprises in store for you. But if you own it, it basically is going to enhance the sale price of the home. I got this question a few times, surprisingly. Should I wait for a technological breakthrough? So every year there is a micro breakthrough and a small percentage increase in efficiency year by year by year. So it's incremental gains. I mean, we have several people that are involved in advising people on solar that have had solar for more than 10 years. And when you look at the technology versus today, the output is so much lower and the efficiency is so much lower. But guess what? They've already paid it off. So do you wait? I don't think so. All right. If I can't do solar for whatever reason, I've got too much shade or my roof is an issue, no. Okay. There's actually a different slide after this. Wait for it. But I'll give you a wait for it. I don't have solar on my house because of problems I could explain, but I do other things like I buy renewable energy. Okay, and my overcompensation is I do things like solarized Elko. Okay, so how to go solar with an organization like us? You would, it's pretty simple. You own the property, you can give us your power bill. We walk you through, hey, do you want to pay, borrow, or lease? And then you decide, hey, I want to proceed. So what we do is a web meeting usually where we will go through this assessment process and ask all these questions. That's our information, website and email address. Okay, so I think maybe that's the last slide for us.
That is your last slide. Thank you so much, Peter. Appreciate your great information on what volunteers can do to help residents learn about solar. So now we're to Greater Westchester. Brian, do you want to mention what you've been working on?
Good evening, all. Here's my 1-minute pitch about Solarize Greater Westchester. So we've been around for about 3 years now, and we've been helping homeowners and businesses review their appropriateness for rooftop solar. While I've had about 50 plus inquiries over the last couple of years, we haven't really had any from businesses yet. Like Joe, I use the public resources like Google Project Sunroof, NREL PV Watts, and Pico's website to assess solar appropriateness. The other thing I try to do is engage the homeowner on making their home more energy efficient. If it's not already energy efficient, I try to encourage that homeowner to become to do the things necessary to reduce their energy usage, because by doing that, you actually will need a smaller system if you want to cover 100% of your electricity through solar. Also try to convince the homeowners to go and convert to all electric utilities, HVAC systems, because in the long run, if you want to do solar, if you get those systems installed first, then you have the ability to sort of understand how much solar you need on the roof, or if you do in your yard. So just basically real quick, we're differently than the other solarized models in the area across the country, because Solarize Greater Westchester, we don't actually work with any specific solar vendors or recommend any solar vendors. What we do is we actually have a list of individual homeowners who've purchased solar, and we connect you with them for their recommendations. So that's my 1-minute pitch here.
Thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate your view on Solarize for your community. So we're going to do a quick poll here, give it about a minute to launch, just to see what people's plans are for solar. So I'm just launching a poll. Give it about a minute or two. And it would be great if everybody could try to respond, just so we can see what our crowd of 62 is doing. And you can scroll down if you're on a tablet or a phone. If you scroll down, there's some more choices at the bottom. So we've got 41 respondents. Any of the remaining 15? Oh, now we're up to 45. Thank you for everyone participating. So we'll give it another, we're up to almost 50. Can we get 50 responses? All right, we hit 50 in a minute. So give it 10 more seconds. But we got 52. So let's look at our results. So that's pretty good coverage. What do we have? 17% already have, and 46% are planning to install, which is excellent. And sorry to see our ones that aren't able to, either because they're renting or have a roof that may not work. And it looks like we've still got 4 that we could help convince maybe at some point. So thank you for participating in this poll. I just wanted to give you the follow-up resources. You'll get the deck and the recording in a couple days, but these links go to various volunteer groups that the Sierra Club and other volunteers have started to formulate to help share the idea of clean energy transition. And there's a lot of good information here to share with your communities, but if you'd like to participate and join some of these teams, there's some volunteer input forms there. You can find out. We'd be glad to speak with you about your interest and how we can help grow clean energy in Pennsylvania. So I think we're ready for Q&A. So has anybody been, of our presenters, and Ron Saltano is our other solar expert on the call. Have you guys been watching the chat that you could pick out a few questions that still need to be answered?
So I could
So
I could answer Barbara's. I mean, I could start with Barbara's question. She talked about the fact that she's got a 40-year-old roof and she doesn't want to do or rooftop solar, but she has plenty of land. One of the things about the issues with installing ground-mounted solar, Barbara, is that the cost per watt installation is a lot higher than rooftop solar. So if you have the same kind of, let's say, the example that Joe was mentioning, the 14 kilowatt system, a rooftop system would be much less expensive. It's doable though, if that's what you want to do. As one of the presenters suggested, when you talk to any vendors or contractors, ask them if they have done a ground mount solar, and if they have, get some references for that.
I was going to also suggest you may want to first check with your municipality. There may be ordinance, that might have. There's a lot of ordinance out there that are anti-solar that have a lot of restrictions on setbacks and things like that. So you want to maybe find out, the ordinance that you have in your municipality to know that you can put solar on the ground in your property.
That's a good point, Ron. Not all solar vendors have the time or effort to learn all of the township rules and regulations. My example, when I did solar, was perfect. I mean, I got 2 final solar quotes. I was down to the last 2. And then I ended up finding out that there was a code restriction, which neither of the vendors found out about. So yes, it's very important to connect with your local code enforcement officer at your local township about that.
I picked out a question. There are two questions about Solarize in other areas, Bucks and Montgomery. Does Brian or Peter know whether Montgomery or Bucks are still doing any Solarize efforts? And if not, how much work does it take for a volunteer to learn how to do this if you wanted to set up a Solarize for your community? A service like yours?
Well, I do believe there is someone still working Montgomery County, and inquiries can be made on the Southeast PA web page, and somebody will get back to you. I mean, Solarize Delco will help anybody anywhere. We have crossed the line, because if people want, I mean, that's what we're there for, is to help people figure it out. So if there is nobody home, you could always ask Solarize Delco. I mean, we do our web meet. We could meet with anyone anywhere. So.
Any other questions the panelists have picked out from the chat they'd like to address?
Yeah, Bill, I think the question about, what the Trump administration might do to tax credits deserves a little more discussion. Even if we don't have an answer, we can at least share what we don't know.
Yeah, so right now, I guess we're still all up in the air. We don't have any real idea yet, do we? So
Yeah, we kind of don't think they can do anything retroactive. So until they actually pass a law that repeals the IRA or portions thereof, we think you'll be safe in counting on those tax credits. So if they pass a law in June, and if you've started your installation before June, then we think you'll be safe. But definitely quiz your installer about that.
And I'll put in the Solar United Neighbors link. I believe that's the one Peter mentioned that assists people in Allegheny County. Is that what you were speaking to, Peter?
Yeah, and I'm just going to drop in the one, same link. Okay. But there is a Pennsylvania page. I'll be honest with you, I haven't gone in and researched their activity. One of the problems with the volunteer organizations like ours is sometimes the volunteer activity peters out a little bit. So I can't speak to what's active in Western PA, but they're, from what I've seen, they're a great organization.
And Joe, was there any questions that caught your eye that you wanted to clarify or help?
No, I saw a couple people asked about, where can I get local resources? And to be honest, just simply as a homeowner, start with your township, find out what their requirements are from the permitting side of things. If they're asking for engineers, if you're going to look at a ground mount, find out. We've heard that already about, setback requirements. Some townships have, some municipalities, they ask for, you'd be surprised. Some of them want, you can't see the panels. If you're going to put them on the ground, you need to have like a landscaping screen. Some of them want all black. You can't have any silver showing. There's all kinds of interesting things. So start with your township, maybe start there. And then just go on your local utilities website. They'll have information to get you started in terms of what they're looking for to have you interconnect with them. And that way, at least gives you the basic information, because the internet can be very overwhelming when trying to sift through all that.
And have you run into the concerns about glare in any of your communities?
To be honest, not anymore. That was an issue a long time ago. I know that most of the panels that are made today, they're using like an anti-glare type glass, so it shouldn't have any kind of reflective or massive reflective image. That's something, like I said, we haven't heard that come up in a long time in terms of the glare, so it could be an older system. Ron, any feedback on that one?
Yeah, there are some ordinances that do have a glare issue in there, and it is overstated because the evidence is such that there's more glare from like ponds or from glass that's on houses or whatever So it's an overstated thing. I did want to point out that if folks aren't aware of, there's the PA Solar Center, and I'll just state that, which is in the western part of Pennsylvania, and they're a great resource for a lot of different things. They do have a huge list of solar installers throughout the state, and they have a lot of great resources about solar in a lot of different perspectives that's going on throughout, in recent years. I work with them on a lot of policy issues, so they're good to check out. I also wanted to kind of bring up, I forget who it was, but mentioned about, and it was such a sad thing to hear that, you had to have, someone had solar on their roof and they had to get the roof redone and they had to take the solar off, and it wasn't cost effective to put the solar back on the roof. I was curious how old that solar system was, because you're getting to Joe's point, it should have maybe been reviewed on when that roof had to be replaced in order to think about putting solar on it. It still may be something to think about, putting a new solar system on the roof, because then you could apply for that tax credit again, believe it or not. If the system isn't too old, yes, the modules can be tested. There's ways to test them. There's basically IV tracing that can be done to check them out. But I'll tell you, it is tough to sell them on whether it's eBay or not. There's a lot of solar is coming off roofs these days, and they're trying to be sold into the marketplace. They're probably not anywhere as efficient as they are today that you can buy new.
Yeah, I did want to say a little more about this question about municipal codes and obstacles to solar. So there are still some municipalities out there that are making it really, really tough to do solar. Department of Energy has a great program called Soul Smart, and I put the link in there. And that is basically designed to get municipalities to kind of get with the program and understand and make it simpler for people to put in solar, a little bit of standardization. They're also great. The one thing that the municipalities like is that they provide free training. So if your municipality is not signed up with SoulSmart, and you're on, particularly if you're on an environmental advisory committee or board, you should try to get them to do that.
Thanks. Good comment, Peter. The other thing you can look at is ask your county planners if they have any model ordinances for solar. I know Bucks County and Montgomery County have set up model ordinances, so it'll give townships and boroughs a head start if they want to, start with something, pre-formed. I think why don't we open up to people raise their hands. If your question hasn't been answered, you'd like to ask a follow-up question, please use the Zoom raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom menu. We did plan for this webinar to go till 8:15 because we realized there'd be a lot of interest and we want you to get the full value of all of the presenters we have here. So I'm going to take our first question from Nancy Winkler.
Hi, thanks for a great program. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot. We have solar and have been trying to support initiatives in that area. I have a question, I think probably for Ron or I'm not sure who else might know this, but if our community is currently has a Soul Smart Bronze rating. Is there any benefit or reason that I should maybe press my community to try to upgrade to Soul Smart Silver or Gold? That's my question.
I really don't know. Are you
I can answer that.
Yeah, I was gonna say also, are you within DVRVC, the Delaware Valley?
Yes.
Okay, regional. Yeah, so they're a great resource to touch base with, and they could definitely give you positive feedback on that.
Yeah, so Haverford is also bronze. So the difference in levels is not, just get in at a minimum is my advice. The difference in levels is you have to have an online simplified permitting process to get the higher levels. But at least if they go into bronze, they have, training, and they have sort of transparent permitting processes for solar. So that's really the essential for everyone. So I would say you don't have to bug them over going to higher levels. I'm on our EAC and I bug them and it has no effect, but mostly because
asking for lower permitting fees?
yes, absolutely. And we've asked for that, but good, and I know Phoenixville, I think, has done that. Phoenixville, Pennsylvania has done that as an incentive, basically lowering the cost of entry. And, the problem is no municipality wants to cut any of their revenue streams. But go for it, make the ask. We have. I can't report success yet, though.
So, thank you. Can we go to Barbara?
Did you say something about solar panels and bodies of water like ponds? Is it not wise to have a solar panel within some distance of a pond?
No, not at all. In fact, you'd be surprised what's happening now is solar is being installed on top of ponds. It's calling solar PV flotation devices. So no, I was referring to the reflectivity with regard to glare that ponds tend. I mean, from let's say there's been questions about a plane flying over and getting distracted with the glare of a solar array on the ground, and they can't see what's going on, and the glare is affecting ponds. In fact, have more glare than the solar panels would. So that's all.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Ron. Can we go to Judy?
Yes, I'm the one that posted. I have my solar panels taken down to put a new roof on, and the panels are 15 years old. The roof was 6 years old at the time I had the panels put on. And one of the other reasons I'd had them taken down is because there was a problem with one of the inverters, and one thing, what I found out is that the installer never registered the inverters. If they were registered, the company would give me free upgrades to new inverters, but because they weren't registered, that was something so I just want to mention that for something for people to look out for that are getting solar systems. Yeah, and I was trying to find out what I can do with them. I don't want to just dispose of them. I'd rather have them recycled or reused if possible. So I wonder if you have any. What I found is they're 235 watts, and now the systems are a lot higher. The panels have a lot higher wattage. And I don't know if there's too much of a market for the panels that I have, but I'd appreciate if you have any suggestions on what I can do with them.
Yeah, I mean, are those aren't SunPower modules, are they?
No.
Okay, so there's a few things. I mean, I'm actually looking sometimes for panels, recycled panels, because some farmers like to use. They don't have to worry about permits or codes so much on the properties. So there's an opportunity there. But I've also been involved with. I know someone in Philadelphia that is sending a lot of old modules off to the Gambia, and been really involved with a lot of modules going out there. So going over to Africa. So there's a possibility too. I agree. It's a shame to have them disposed of, because in fact it could be costly. You can't necessarily just throw them into a landfill. They're electronic waste. So if they can be used again somewhere, there's opportunities for that to happen.
So can you give us your address, Ron, so we can send them all to you?
How big is my backyard?
No, I really am glad to hear that you're involved in some way, but it would be great to have a clearinghouse. I've always felt that the farmer option, farmers like to build things and they're very capable. And, basically, if you got a lot of land, you can have a simple ground mount system and just make sure you have a competent, electrical installation, and you save an awful lot of money. We really could use an organization that sort of acts as a clearinghouse for that.
Thank you for the topic, Judy. We could move on to Karen.
My house was built in 1910 and it's a 3-story twin with there's about like 10 different roofs on it. Some are flat, some are sloped. Is this even something I should be considering, or is it just not realistic to?
Well, listen, I'd like to take that because that sounds a little like my roof. And as I said, I don't have solar, but the easy answer is, if you have a local organization like a Solarize, get an assessment and they will be able to advise you on that. But from what you described, the answer is it might be awfully difficult, mostly because you need enough larger expanses of roof to make it work. I think I saw one installation in Upper Darby, a fellow who I know actually, who has some of that roof issues, and it's like the only triangular solar panels I've ever seen. But I would say there's no harm in getting an assessment and getting an opinion, but probably not.
Okay.
And I would encourage you, if you're not already, buy renewable energy if you can't. It's not for the faint of heart. Unfortunately, in Pennsylvania, consumer protections are not great for buying third-party renewable power. But it is possible if you have intestinal fortitude and you put your expiration on your calendar so that you don't get the big bump up in rates when your contract expires.
Karen, where do you live?
Me in Narberth.
Narberth?
Yes,
Okay.
we have a lot of solar on a lot of old houses here, but I think they're mostly single houses. I'm not sure how many twins have them.
Peter, wouldn't
If-
that be something that your group could do?
Absolutely. We would take a look at it. If you want to just go on to Solarize Delco and go through set up a virtual meet, we'll be
Okay,
happy to look
even
at
if
it.
it's not, we're Delco adjacent.
What's that?
We're Delco adjacent. It's
That's
Montgomery.
okay. Like I said,
Okay.
whatever, we'll help you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Karen. Before I go to Mary Ann, Joe, there was a question here from Lehigh County about, oh, you already answered it about how they can get help. Thanks, all right, for already getting that question. So how about Mary Ann?
Okay, thank you for informative evening. I was just wondering, what wattage can you reasonably expect from a new panel?
Lifetime? The
Just kind of like, I guess, yearly or daily.
Well,
We're at the initial stages of like looking into getting solar panels, so I just was kind of wondering.
well, the wattage has been increasing over the years. The panels have been getting bigger and bigger. They've also been getting more efficient. But I mean, typically now, and Joe, you would know this. I mean, it's more like around the 500 watts per panel is kind of that ballpark. They go up to over 600. They could be below the 450. They can be all over the place.
Yeah,
But
Ron, I think you're thinking about commercial size panels. I think most of the residential size panels are still in that 400 to 450 watts range. They are making different sizes now, and yeah.
Joe,
I don't know,
what,
they're getting
Joe,
harder
what,
to find under the
Joe,
500.
what wattage have you been installing?
Sure. Yeah, Mary Ann, lately, we've been installing, like our panel we recommend would be one that's like a 425 watt panel. I know after this new year, our distributor just said that the 435s will be available. So just kind of start with that. And then if you're thinking that, okay, add 10 together, that kind of gives you like a starting point for what the system you know, what the system rating is. Really what you then want to look at would be, when you talk to a contractor, is that, you know, the stamp rating is one thing, but you want to look at, you know, where on the roof it's going to go, how much shading do you have, because really it's about the amount of sun it's going to get. So if, for example, like a 3 kW system might be able to output 4,000 watts through the, or, I'm sorry, 4,000 kilowatt hours through the whole year, just based on exposure. So stamp rating, you know, the amount of panels, the number of panels, the wattage of panels is one thing, and then it's also looking at, you know, it's called KWH, like how much you can generate.
I did want to mention there's a great, easier to use website, Project Sunroof by Google. If you search for it, you'll find it. You can enter an address and you get a good visual of the roof of your home. Bright yellow being, hey, you've got good solar radiation, versus, you know, tree cover being orange or purple even. So, and it gives you some basic stats. It's sort of like Solar for Dummies, which is why we use it.
Thank you. Well, we'll go to, next is, R. Timothy.
Yep, I'm here. Actually, two things. There was a early question about whether or not you're getting your power generation from, like, we have West Penn, or if you go to an alternate, you don't get the credit. Is that true? I didn't quite understand the question.
Well, so if you generate more than 100%, well, if you generate less than 100% of your demand, reliably less than 100%,
Yeah.
You can use a third-party power supplier, like a renewable power supplier. If you go over 100% generation of in a year, you basically lose that excess generation. So that's
We're
why
not near 100%, so that answers that side of it for us.
Yeah.
The other quick question, we had our first good snowstorm and we haven't had any solar power for the past week. It finally melted off yesterday. Ours is like 3 stories up. Are there any tricks or suggestions or things to do to get rid of the snow faster?
Well, not that I would recommend this, but someone, actually an installer, told me if you were able to get to the rafters in that attic, tapping them may help loosen the snow. But it's all about temperature, right? And solar. Usually it's surprising it lasted a week, because usually, you know,
It's been clouded over and rained and, you know.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
no, it snowed
Sometimes
some
it'll
more.
heat up enough and it'll start to slide off, but yeah, that's unfortunate. It's gotta be painful.
Yeah, we're sitting here watching the sunshine and the roof is white.
Oh,
Okay, thank you.
We haven't gotten snow down here in, southeastern PA yet, so I don't know which is worse. Do we wish we had some, or
We're up in Center County.
Center County?
Yeah.
Can I make a quick comment about that? Just, we have solar panels on our roof and we put, before we put the solar panels on, we put a new roof on and we put in a lot of insulation. And what we found is that it takes much longer because there's very little heat escaping through our roof. Snow stays on our roof and our panels much longer than our neighbors, days and days. Because we're not warming it up by heat escaping from our house.
So you're saying don't insulate your roof?
No,
kidding. That was a
no,
joke.
I'm not saying that, but I'm just, you know, maybe his roof is well insulated, you know, I don't know. But
Yeah, so it's a bit of a trade-off, but yeah, you should. That's actually one of the best things you could do still to this day is energy efficiency. So
I'd like to ask our presenters, do you have any questions for each other, or did you learn something? Because our presenters and our experts here, you know, is there something new that came to you during this call?
I only thing I would love to say is, again, it's just awesome to hear how passionate people are. There are so many people that are, really passionate about this industry and about continuing to see solar grow. And especially from the volunteer side of it, it's just wonderful to see people giving up their time to, because the reason I wanted to do this tonight was the education side of this is the most important thing. Because, it's not for everyone. Just giving people the right information to make the decision if this is right for them or not is so important. And just so to hear all the volunteers helping people out, because, again, it's hard to know where to get information, what to trust, things like that. So I'm just elated, how many people are involved and how many people are doing good by everyone. So kudos to
Yeah,
everyone for that.
Thank you so much, Joe. You had a wealth of information to share. One last question came in while we were talking, or you were talking there. Does anyone have experience with solar panels going across two circuits, or this house having two different circuits? They're both owned by the same owner, but how would you handle that? Having two different solar installations or not?
I don't think I understand the question.
Yeah, dude.
Barbara, do you wanna come off mic?
You mean
Yeah, it was that the property has two different connections to the electric grid. One is an old little cabin, and the other one is a new house that was built in the late 70s. So there's two different meters, one for the big house and one for the little cabin. And the most sunny place is near the little cabin. So it seemed that that's where the panels should go, but when we first started to discuss this, it seemed like we would have to sell that electricity to the local system, and then I don't know if we'd get a discount or not, because we don't use much electricity in the cabin, only in the big house.
Are both the accounts in the same name holder?
Yeah,
Okay, then you could take advantage of virtual meter aggregation that allows you to put the system on the cabin, and you can then have you can have the house as a secondary to take on all that surplus and offset the bill on that house. So it's called virtual meter aggregation. It's pretty well.
great, good. I think maybe did this come into being recently?
No, it's been around since 2004.
Okay,
What
good. Well,
utility,
thank you for educating me. I appreciate it.
what utility are you with, Barbara?
Somerset Rural Electric Co-op.
Ooh, okay, now we're talking different story here.
Okay.
It's not a public utility. That's not under the Pennsylvania Utility Commission. Unfortunately, it's a co-op. Now, so I retract everything that I said. You'll have to talk to the utility. You'll have to talk to them specifically. They may not
And
even
ask them why I can't have meter aggregation.
Well, they may not even have net metering. I mean, they have their own rules. They aren't governed by the PUC.
So I have to lobby with them to change their rules,
Well,
since I'm a member of the co-op.
just ask them about, that you want to put solar at what works, what can you do, and hear what they have to say.
Okay, thank you.
I think there have been co-ops that have gone solar, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, thank
Good to
you.
know.
Thank you so much, everyone, and our esteemed panelists, Joe, Jim, Peter, Brian, and our technical expert, Ron Solitano. Appreciate everyone's participation and contribution to the discussion. Again, we'll be sending out the follow-up soon, so appreciate everyone's attendance, and there'll be ways to contact your presenters so you can follow up if you have more questions. We really appreciate your attendance. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Have a good night.
You too. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks, Bill. Good job.
Good night.